Hello and welcome to another episode of Creative Appetite. Today I'm joined by my good friend Casey. She is a graphic designer specialising in collage and pop art, and she is also an illustrator on the side. Oh, nailed it. First time ever.
Love that.
I reckon that was pretty good.
That was good.
That was smooth.
Good. Yeah, that was.
If you look at all the other ones that I do, it's not smooth.
Here's
And so many people, like so many of my friends that watch it and listen to it, are like, why don't you just write it down, or like write a couple of things down? And now I refuse. I'm like, I'm not going to conform.
That's fair. And I feel like you can tell when someone's like reading something that's written down compared to just like, it comes almost more authentically when you're thinking about it rather than writing it down and going
100%.
back to it.
Because it's so much, I don't know, and like, because visually, like imagine if I was sitting here with a piece of paper and you're trying to like,
everyone's like, what?
It'd just be weird.
It would be a little bit weird. Yeah. Move that. Okay. Like that.
It's like directional.
Okay. Yeah.
It makes more sense. Sorry. I did an episode with my mate Perry.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't remember what he's doing, but he was sitting like, he was either sitting super far back or like, and or like it kept like dropping in and out.
Yeah.
So I was like, had to like slowly like slide it to him.
I do tend to like move a lot when I talk and things. So if it does start to do that, just be like, sit still.
That's all right. Okay. I think Jai, when I had him on, he's got like ADHD. He couldn't sit still. He was like constantly like moving
just,
around.
Like, running around the studio. Like, stop doing that. Like.
Oh my goodness. So let's just, I find like collage, like the art that you do, I find it very interesting because I know there probably are a lot of people that do it, but to me it's visually appealing.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up, was that something that you were drawn to, like when you were reading through magazines or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. So it also came from when I was in high school. I had an art teacher who wasn't the loveliest person in the world. She was very honest to people. So people would be like, oh, here's my art assignment. She'd be like, that's just not good. Like that was an ongoing. So in her art class, I found if I collaged instead of doing drawings and things, she'd often come back like, wow, that looks really good. And that kind of molded me going into collage rather than like illustration or doing that full time. And yeah, so, and then I think I just wanted to have a bit more like continuity than it looking like it was just cut out of a magazine and pasted together with a glue stick. So yeah, that's where the pop art like merged into it.
I think the first time I saw collage art was, is it in the Scream movie where they like send the letter out with all the like different cutout letters?
The ransom note, like, yeah.
I think that was the first time I saw it. I was like, this is actually pretty cool, apart from the message that they're trying to say in this movie.
I actually got like a Photoshop pack the other day that was like cut out magazine letters, and it was called like the ransom note pack, like make your perfect ransom note. And I was like, oh, is this a good way to market this?
You sure you want to market it like that?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know about that. So
it's appealing to the masses.
Exactly. The mass murderers. Yeah. So, yeah.
So you mentioned that in school, your art teacher was big on collage art.
Yeah, well, just not big on the other ideas I had. She didn't like them very much, so it kind of made me move into that.
What were your other ideas?
So, like, I was illustrating a lot back then, and my sister was in her class a few years before me, and my sister's, like, the most amazing illustrator in the world. Like, she's like Van Gogh or something. Like, she just does something and it's amazing. And then so this teacher was like, oh, her sister's coming in. Awesome. She's going to be amazing. And just everything. She was like, that's just not good. Tried like watercolor, tried like pastels and stuff, which I hated because I'd lean on them and then they'd just go everywhere. And so, yeah, I kind of moved to collage because I felt like it was like I had control over it without having to like pour hours and hours into all the assets that go into it, with then her judging that, I guess. So that was kind of where it came from in high school, and then it just kind of merged from there. And yeah, it became really big because I was actually in 2020 going to go to Melbourne for uni. Haha, COVID, that didn't happen. And I wanted to do...
Shout out to COVID, ruining
thanks,
people's
COVID.
lives.
But yeah, so I was going to go there and do music journalism, and I really wanted to stand out. So I actually made like collaged animations, like Monty Python style, like stop motion animations. That was like collage with movement, and that made me like really fall in love with it because I was like, there's so much you can do by just like moving something a centimeter, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that does sound very interesting.
Yeah.
Is that like a moving picture, or is that just like where you place like certain things within the picture? Is that what you're describing?
So yeah, it's kind of like you know how people do like stop motion claymation movies and things like that, where they kind of make it move it slightly, and then they put all the frames together, and it
what?
Like I think like even
I'm trying to think of that.
Like Wallace and Gromit and stuff. Yeah,
that's like I was like, oh, what am I trying to get? Yeah.
So it was like that, but with like 2D instead of using like clay and stuff that was 3D. So I'd kind of like illustrate someone's face and then get like a collage, like a shirt from somewhere, pants, put like a beer in their hand, all this, and then just slightly move everything the tiniest bit, and it would take like 5,000 frames, I think, for like a minute and a half. So yeah, it was like 5,000 like separate.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy. So I stopped doing that because it was really hard and really time consuming.
Yeah. So I feel like the patience level would have to be through the roof.
And I'm not a patient person, so why I decided let's go with that is beyond me. So
I would 100% just throw it out. I'd be like, I'm done.
I did 3 and everyone's like, are these ever going to come back? And I'm like, no. Just straight up no. Like, nah.
Not happening.
It's done.
It's like, do you remember the old school, like what you're describing, but when they used to like draw it on the corners? Of like a book.
And you like flip the book
flip
and it's like,
and it just goes
so
through.
same vibe really, because it's just that moving everything slightly. So
I find that so interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. I take my hat off to people that do it full time because it is really hard.
It's like people that, I don't know what type of art it is, but they will literally just start drawing lines on a piece of paper. You're like, what the hell is the outcome here?
Yeah.
And over time, it just starts forming into this like face or whatever.
I know, you just see it like come together and you're like, how does your brain even think of it like this?
How do you see it like?
Yeah.
You just start, because it doesn't ever look like anything. It just looks like a random bunch of lines, and then they like zoom out, and then there's this like beautiful.
It's so crazy. I find it too, like watching people that do like graffiti or like street art, like how sometimes they paint in like negatives, or like they start and like you just see it come together, and you're like, how did you even like piece that together in your head? Like it's really crazy to me.
Can you describe painting in negatives? Because I just hadn't, like I don't even understand what that is.
So like say if they were to do like a big piece with like a word, and then they start with like kind of like the darker like background, and then like kind of buff everything like into it as they go, rather than like starting with like the front of the image and working back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
So they're kind of doing it in these like block colors and then bringing like other colors into it to eventually make it an image. But I'm just like, I don't understand how you can like, it's like, thinking about the negative space rather than,
it's so no, that makes it. I think that would, I understood. Yeah. And if I understood, then most people should understand.
Graffiti artist watching that, like she butchered that, but it's fine. But yeah,
a friend of mine came on. He runs a clothing label called Kid Veen.
Yeah,
and he was a graffiti artist.
Yeah,
so I'm sure if he listens to this, he'll be like,
"No, take your TNs off.
Get your TNs out of here.
Yeah, get it out." So yeah, pretty much.
I find art just so fascinating, and how people come up with the idea. There's this I think his name's Ben Frost.
Yeah.
I hope it's that guy and I didn't just butcher it. But he gets medical cardboard containers, cuts them open, and then draws like faces on them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy. And I saw it at an art show recently on the weekend.
Yeah.
I was like, man, who's like coming up with these ideas?
Literally. And you're just like, how did you even think of that, and how did you decide? Because one of the hardest things for me was like deciding what my like main look was going to be, I guess, as an artist, like what niche I was going to do to kind of make it my thing. And I'm always like, how do people land on what they choose? Like, I guess it just comes from like, that's the funnest thing to create, or like maybe, it's the most like rewarding. But yeah, I'm always like, how did you choose that? Like,
how did you choose your style?
It just kind of happened. So I was making a lot of like band posters for people, and then I did one in particular that was really pop arty, and that was 2 years ago, and still to this day people send me that one being like, this is what I want it to look like this is the best poster. So I think that just kind of like all just came together. And yeah, I've always loved like pop art. Like when I was a kid, I was really into like my punk music even back then, and it was even like the Sex Pistols album cover for like Nevermind the Bollocks. It's like bright pink, bright yellow, and I was like, when you look at a shelf, that one sticks out so much more than the rest. So I think it was that same mindset that kind of led it to where it is now.
So it's more like, for you, it's more like visually what's going to like stand out, like color-wise.
Yeah, bold and bright.
It's like, it's not like it's not subtle. It's like just straight in your face.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it when I look at your art. I'm like, it's kind of like, but I think it's done in such a nice way.
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot of, like a lot of depth to it, if that makes sense. Like I've seen art that is very bold and bright, but it just doesn't. It's that's too bold.
All, well, that's like kind of all it has.
Yeah, it's all it's got. Like there's not much else to it. Where yours, kind of like what you were talking about before about the negatives. Like there is like negative space in there, and everything seems to be situated where it needs to be. Yeah, which is great.
Thank you. But
for me, visually, because I'm such a visual person. Yeah, everything's like has to be.
I'm the same. Like even when I like plan like out what I'm going to post on Instagram and like things like that. Not that I think that Instagram is like your only what you're like platform or like your biggest aim in art. Like it's very helpful, but it's obviously not why everyone makes art to like get an Instagram following. People don't care about that. But I find when I was like planning like how am I going to do this, I wanted to think about it more as a consumer than an artist. And I kind of thought like I follow pages that like their art, like their whole Instagram is just so like there's so much continuity and it all goes together and looks really pretty and it looks really like well thought out. So I think I just wanted to like make art that whenever I posted it, it could keep that really bright, colourful continuity and bring even people in that are not necessarily artists or wanting to follow it because it's art. They're just like, oh, this looks really nice. And yeah.
I think it definitely does have that. It's actually quite interesting that you mentioned that because to put it all together in the way that you have, because of how bold and bright it is actually quite a task within itself.
Yes, because sometimes it looks so chaotic and way too much. So you got to find a way to like having that bold and bright and to be continuous, but not to be like overstimulating for people, I guess.
Yeah, like for me, if it was, I'd just be like, whoa, like, it's just too much. Yeah, yeah. So obviously you must have to really think about your structure and how you're putting it in there.
Yeah, I kind of go by like colours. So I'll be like, okay, the last one I posted was like bright yellow. So maybe next we go like a blacker image to just kind of balance it. Then we might go pink, then orange and just try to keep it
like a nice, like a rainbow.
Exactly.
So if you start from the bottom, it just turns into this big rainbow.
Yeah, yeah. And I get really annoyed if I like don't plan something out and then like two come together and I'm like, the same colour next to each other. Like people are going to see it.
I like try to think about how I structure my Instagram, like my podcast one. Yeah. And it started off, it was like kind of all right at the start. I was just posting videos and then I got my graphics. So then I started like splitting everything up. Yeah. And then recently I kind of like made myself a new style without even trying. Yeah. Because of the way it just, I don't know, I posted one thing and I was like, well, I can't delete that now. I'm just going to stick and like deal with it. And like,
yeah.
What other platforms do you use what other platforms do you think are better than Instagram to like get your art out there?
Honestly, at the moment, I think Instagram is the best platform for that stuff because everybody is on Instagram. And I find if you're thinking about it from like a marketing point of view, you don't want to move people from an app they're already on all the time. Like if they can see it on Instagram and then you're like, oh, but you have to go to Facebook to see this. 50% of people might go to Facebook, but like majority will just be like, no, I just want to see it on Instagram because I'm already here and that's now effort. So I do think Instagram is a really good app because the algorithm can suck. Like Instagram algorithm's a horrible thing at the best of times, but I feel like everyone's already on that app. It has like shops in there now. It's got, you can put your link in your bio for your website and I think it is a really good platform for creatives.
It's an interesting, I've been like dwelling on this thought recently about Instagram and the same thing that you said. Like once people are already on there, they're not going to move to anything else. Yeah. So like you, as an artist, it's like you pretty much need to just follow what's getting put out there and just as soon as something else comes out, just jump onto that and then go again.
Like I'm sure soon everyone will be like, we hate Instagram now and now there's this other app. Like
I feel like that's coming. Yeah. I feel like it's coming. I don't know what is the next thing. Yeah. And I've been trying to figure out what it is, but I 100% believe that Instagram is going to come crashing down. Not crashing down as in not be there, but I just think that people are going to start moving to something new because like everything, people get bored. And if you look at the trend of like how social media has come and gone, Facebook is a great example. Mm-hmm. Before Facebook, there was Bebo. Before Bebo, there was MySpace. Yep.
There was
And then
Tumblr in there for a bit.
Tumblr
People
was
liked
in there as well.
Tumblr. That
I
was a
like
really
Tumblr.
good. I still actually post my art on Tumblr, and it still does really well on Tumblr.
I
'Cause
love
was
Tumblr.
like, oh,
Tumblr's
like
like, I thought
yeah.
Tumblr was great.
I know, so
way
did
better
I.
than Instagram.
Same. I'm like, let's bring everyone. We're moving back to Tumblr. Anyone listening? We're all going back to Tumblr.
We're all going back.
Yeah,
Everyone,
it's
this is
happening,
where this
so-
will all be posted from now on.
Yeah, but I think the issue like all these apps have that is the reason everyone moves from them is like the ads and the payment and all the marketing takes over and people like, well, we moved from Facebook to Instagram because there was too much crap on Facebook and we wanted to go somewhere where that was like filtered. And then now people are on Instagram and every fourth post is an ad. Every fourth story is an ad. And if you're a brand, you go first and then everything comes after that. It's not chronological anymore. And I think people get sick of that again and they'll move to something that will promise it won't have that. And then 2 years later it'll have it and we'll just be back where we were. So I was like, even things like Patreon and stuff I think are really good where people like pay to subscribe to artists and things like that and there aren't ads and everything. But again, not everyone's going to want to pay and subscribe to things when now we're paying for Netflix, Stan, Disney Plus, Binge, everything else that comes into that.
Yeah.
Another subscription is...
I feel, this is actually good because I've literally all day been thinking about this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my finances and what I'm spending my money on.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about like I get so frustrated now with Instagram.
Yeah.
Because everything, like you said, is a paid ad.
Yeah.
It's like someone's shouting out something.
Yeah.
Someone's doing something, which is great for the brands that they're shouting out.
Exactly.
But it's so annoying to like see it.
Yeah. And it's always big brands that are taking the monopoly. Like smaller brands and creators don't have that same. Like even I've in the past paid for like Instagram promotion and it's given me next to nothing for an amount of money I've paid. And then I find anything I post for like the next 2 weeks after that, it like punishes me. It's like, well, you're not paying again. So we're not going to show your stuff for a little bit and you're not going to get reach on these next posts. I'm like, oh, Instagram, like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's a tough one, hey.
Yeah.
It's very well thought out by the creators of those platforms.
It is. And that's
soul crushing for everyone else. That's like,
is.
especially if you're like starting, like I'm starting. I'm assuming you're still starting and working your way out.
Even because when I first started, I had my Instagram name as like crap design with the A in it. And then I was trying to promote things and it's like, no, you can't pay to promote anything. And I was like, oh, it's weird. I was doing posts as people and they're like, it's weird. It won't let us promote it. I'm like, oh, that's really weird. Flagged, swear word. You're swearing. Crap is a swear word. You're not allowed to use that. You've been like shadow banned. You've been this, you've been that. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, this is my whole branding. Like, I've based everything around this. Like, what am I going to do? So we swapped it for the V and it could go through. But yeah, everything was just getting flagged, can't be promoted.
I actually think the V works better than the word itself. I think it looks more aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, well, I was like saying to people, imagine it like an edgy streetwear brand with the V instead of the U or, you know, the A or whatever. I was like, that's what we're running with because that's all we can do at this point. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has a thought on this. Chuck a comment so I know what's going on because I think I definitely am getting sick of it. Like I'm over it. I'm over like I feel like it's run its course.
Yeah,
so to
definitely.
Speak. There's nothing wrong with what people are doing on there. I just don't find it appealing anymore. Yeah. I'd rather use something else. Like Tumblr, would love to use Tumblr again.
Exactly. I feel like when you'd sit on Tumblr, it was like, yes, like I'm in on Tumblr for the night. Like this is going to be awesome. And you like learn a few things and you get really inspired by stuff. And then I find on Instagram, I'm just like doom scrolling, mindless scrolling.
It is
like
doom
it's
scroll.
Just like, I'm not even like looking at anything. I'm not taking anything in. I'm just like staring
and it's so designed, like you can click on one thing and then all of a sudden the next gazillion things, even in your search engine, is all like that, which is so bizarre. Like it is so annoying that it's designed that way.
Yeah.
Or I've had this new idea. This is one of the things I was thinking about. Yeah. I'm gonna go old school and start going back to like the basics.
Yeah.
Without using social media, like just go spread the podcast through traveling and recording that way, and like just getting my word of mouth out there just from like old school ways of marketing, because I'm kind of over the like paying for ads and stuff like that. I'm like, it's so stupid.
It is.
And like I know when I see someone that has paid for an ad, I just skip past it. I'm like, whatever. Yeah. I'm like, get out of my face.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's
so bad.
So true. Like,
but it's true.
It is, because you're just like, oh, like, yeah, whatever. Like, yeah.
It's this weird. It's this weird. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like this weird attitude towards seeing someone like paying for an ad. You're like,
Yeah.
Whatever, man.
Yeah. It's like, but we like understand the struggle
Yeah,
at the same
yeah,
time.
you understand. You're like, I appreciate your hustle, but gotta go.
Exactly.
I'm probably gonna get shot.
Yeah. No, that'll be like me on my personal Instagram, like looking at stuff. It's a weird thing to pay for, and then me on my art Instagram, I'm like, pay for ad, like go, like. And then it's like, 80 people saw this from your payment. I'm like, awesome, thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, yet again. Like,
let's go back to school because I feel like we'd probably just ramble on way to just running down Instagram.
Yeah. This will get like you'll get shadow banned.
Like
you're shut down. Like,
so you mentioned that your teacher was like really brutally honest.
Yeah.
How did you find that shaped you as a person or as an artist?
Yeah.
Maybe like moving forward. So, did you go all the way to year 12?
I did, but the funny thing is I actually failed art and graphic design as the two subjects. Like every other subject, passed with flying colours, art and graphic design failed. So it's interesting because I feel like the thing I didn't like about those classes is the way that they kind of like took the fun out of it. Like instead of being like, just come up with an idea and paint it or draw it, it was like, you need to do this art diary that needs to be consecutive for the entire term. And like, you got to put all this thought into it and continuity. And I was like, I'm not patient enough. I have so many ideas. I can't stick to one. Like, and I just found that made me like really hate art a lot. And then it wasn't until I kind of got out of school and I started doing it on my own terms. I was like, oh, hang on. You don't have to do all this. Like no one actually cares if you've like followed the same idea, or obviously they do in the end because you kind of form your style and everything becomes continuous. But in the actual like process of sitting and making it, I found I just didn't like the way they like taught you to do it. I liked to do things on my own and just experiment and throw things around and see what happened. So I feel, kind of felt like confined by it and restricted by it. So now.
Yeah, I found that as well, like in school.
Yeah.
I didn't really do well in school.
Yeah.
I did really well in drama.
Yeah. Oh, I was a drama kid too. I was
and
really
then
good at drama.
Ruined everything else. Are you from Queens? You're from Queensland,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
yours
yeah.
is different.
Yeah,
But
you guys did like, were you like
we had
ATAR?
ATARs, yeah, and like
Yeah.
bands. Did you have different bands that you were in?
No. So we just get like your OP score, which is out of like 25. I think 1 being the best, 25 being the worst.
Oh, okay.
And then but it's like also ours is like you compete with your grade. So like I could get straight A's, but if my grade as a cohort got D's as their average grade, like, I would get a really bad OP. So it doesn't make any sense.
That sounds rough.
Yeah, it's horrible because there'd be kids that are like, I'm going to get a 1, I'm going to be a doctor. And they're like, no, your grade did really bad, so you're like a 4. And
That's
they're
so
like,
bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really silly. I think they've gotten rid of it now, though. I think there's like ATAR in Queensland now. Maybe that could be wrong. I don't know, but I think.
Man, screw school.
I know, so stupid. I kind of wish I could go back and just be like to myself, like just leave in year 10, like, go do like a hairdressing trade or something, make a bit of money, like, or like go to TAFE, like try something different. But
how did that go for you, like growing up? Were your parents like forcing you to go to like stay in school, or was it like something that you wanted to do yourself?
Yeah, they didn't really force me. My parents have always been very just like, life's about experience, and as long as you are working and you can look after yourself and you've got a roof over your head, whatever you want to do is like completely your choice. So they were really good like that. I think I wanted to do it because it's just kind of drilled into your head from a young age. Like, if you go to school and you finish year 12 and you get a good OP and you go to university, you're like a good person. I guess not a good person.
Yeah,
but
I
like
understand what you mean.
You're on the right path to life.
Yeah.
And I did uni for I think a month. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. And then, now here we are. So,
yeah, I never went to uni. I was the first person in my family to finish at 12.
Yeah.
And funny story actually. Well, no, we're on here. In year 10, my PE teacher sat me and like 3 other guys down.
Yeah.
And she's like, I highly recommend you don't come back to school next year. So then this started this whole, I was like,
out of spite, I'm staying.
Yeah, literally I was like, now.
Yeah.
I was already going to stay anyway.
Yeah.
But I was like, now that you've mentioned that, I was like, I am going to stay and finish school just to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And I got the satisfaction. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But I don't necessarily think that you need school.
No. And I found, I was reading something the other day, it was like a Vice article or something about COVID, and they were saying how many people, like, one, quit their 9-to-5 job because they were like, I was so unhappy, I had no work-life balance, and the amount of kids that actually dropped out of, like, senior high school because they were like, actually, I don't agree with, like, the school system, especially if I'm just sitting here online learning stuff. I can go on YouTube and learn anything I want to learn and kind of do whatever career I want, so I'm going to do that, and I found that really, really interesting.
Yeah, I've met people like one example, a chick I knew had no like previous marketing experience.
Yeah.
just was like, I'm going to be a marketer, just YouTubed everything and like just passed and got into this job. I was like, it's like, oh, see, like I don't think you need.
Because I always say, like, the phone has every piece of information known to man on it.
Literally.
If you need something, you can just Google it and it just comes up.
I feel like in school they should be teaching like life things like tax, like how to manage your money properly.
Yes, I would have loved that.
Like
I'm
stuff
so
like that.
bad with my money. They taught me that, my life would have been way better. So
Terrible.
Pythagoras theorem, never used it. So tax would have been way better. Like,
yeah, I don't know. It's a bizarre one. I've always pondered on that. I'm like,
surely there's a reason they teach what they teach. Like, surely through time they've been like, this is the reasoning why. But I'm like, does that need to be now re-looked into because the world is not what the world was when our parents were in school? Like,
it's ever evolving. So it's like,
Because even the school I went to, everyone found it crazy because we had like photography as a subject, we had surfing as a subject. It was like everyone was like, that's really weird. And like, but I was like, I guess that's how schools almost should be. So it gives kids like opportunities to try different things. And not everyone wants to be a nurse or a doctor or a accountant or, you know, those things.
Yeah. I
think a very small amount of people want to be an accountant probably.
I'm pushing more for the creative side throughout this podcast. I'm like, you don't need to do that. When you were when you were in art class, what was so you mentioned that your teacher was really into collage art and stuff like that. When you started diving into collage art, were you like, was it specific to like music that you were listening to? Like because you did mention that you listened to like punk and stuff like that. Did you find that was like your first like initial entry point? Yeah,
I think like everything in my life has always come back to music, like because it's just been always such a big part of my life. So even down to like the things I wore when I was in school and stuff like that, it's all because like the music I've listened to and that subculture has like influenced it in some way. So yeah, I think without realizing it from a very young age, it was all because of music, really.
And then moving from school, what was your job out of school? Did you go directly into like designing?
No, so I worked in like a chemist for like 7 years or something. No, not that long. I was doing that while I was at school and then out of school for a bit. It was a long time. It was a horrible job. It was horrible. And then I only got into designing stuff again in 2020. So that's kind of when it all kicked off. I moved in with my friend Josh, who's in a few bands, and he knew that I'd just like kind of play around on Photoshop in my spare time. I never really thought of that as like, oh, I can actually do graphic design. I was like, this is just a hobby. And then he was like, oh, we need a poster. We're playing a show. You're good with Photoshop. Can you just make a poster? And I was like, okay. And then it was kind of like, well, can you make another poster? And I was like, okay. Then another band was like, well, do you want to make us one? And I was like, okay. And then it just kind of never stopped. And I was like, okay.
That's so good.
Still going.
That's the best.
Yeah, it just like I kind of stumbled into it more than chose it, I guess, in a way. So, but I guess that's like how passionate, like when you're passionate about something, it's how it works, isn't it? Like 100%. It just kind of, takes over. So, yeah,
it's cool, like when you like fall into something in a way.
Yeah.
Which is kind of similar to what happened to me with this. I kind of just like fell into it, like this specific podcast and how the idea came about.
Yeah.
I'd like to touch on because you did mention that like you weren't very like when you were starting out, like dealing with the computers side of things and stuff like that. So can you kind of like run through the process on how you taught yourself to use Photoshop, and was it all through YouTube or?
Yeah, so when it first started, I loved MySpace as a kid. Like I thought MySpace was like the coolest thing. And I was really into like girls that were like scene looking, like, you know, the alternative.
Yes.
Like, so I was really into
Tumblr.
that. Yeah, exactly. But mum was like, you are like so young. Like you cannot dye your hair these crazy colors. You cannot do these things. So I started learning how to like edit the color of my hair on like Photoshop and stuff. Like, Mum, look, this is what it would look like pink. And Mum's like, yeah, you're definitely not dyeing your hair pink. Like I don't know why you keep doing this. And then so through time, I just like started learning things. And then YouTube played a massive part. And even now, when people be like, can you do this? I'm like, yep, I know how to do that 100%, definitely. And then I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Just look it up on YouTube, tried a few times. And I'm like, yep, I got it. Here we go. Like, so yeah, I love YouTube. I think everyone get on there if you want to learn how to do something. It's the best.
I definitely think it's great that you've touched on that because, then again, this is going to be a bit weird. So as a kid nowadays, I think everyone's aware of YouTube and the benefits it provides.
Yeah.
But for someone maybe listening that's a little bit older, that's still not quite they are computer illiterate. I think that's the correct term.
I guess so. Yep.
They kind of like it's good to get the information out there that you can use YouTube, and there's actually so much information that is on there.
There is. Even if like I find a certain video and the way they've described it, I'm like, I don't understand what you're doing. Like that to me just doesn't make sense. I can just keep scrolling down, find somebody else, they explain it a lot better, or they explain it in a way I know how to do it, and you can kind of get like all these knowledge from different people on how to do the same thing, and then kind of apply your own way of doing it from that. And that's something that like if you're learning in a classroom and things, you only ever get the one lecturer or teacher, and a teacher makes or breaks your whole experience in learning the creative industries.
They do.
Yeah, if you have a bad teacher, you're going to hate what you're doing. So if you can pick and choose your teacher, it's not costing you any money, and why not?
It's you're just smashing all the valuable information. I love this. This is so great.
Thanks.
Because I feel like it doesn't get touched on enough, like from an artist standpoint, on how what their creative process was like, or what it is like now.
Yeah.
And I always want to find out more, especially in industries that I don't have much idea about.
Yeah.
Which is graphic designing is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming a lot of people listening are probably feeling the same way as well. I do have this weird thing about YouTube though that I would like to mention, and I don't think it's necessarily YouTube. I think it's just me being a weirdo.
Yeah.
It's like this. It's like how much information do you listen to and you know that it's true, and how much are you like you're saying, and maybe not specifically with like Premiere Pro or whatever it may be, like what program, because I feel like that's pretty straightforward. There's only like there's a structure. This is how you do it.
Exactly.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like fixing your car or
some guy could just, I'm just telling you this, and this isn't what you do at all.
Yeah.
But like,
I always get really nervous. I'm like, man, I don't know if I should be doing this.
Yeah, look, I feel like if it's something like life-threatening or anything, don't go on YouTube to figure it out.
It's
you
like
know,
when you
things
write,
like that.
It's like, oh, I've got these symptoms, like cancer.
Yeah,
dead.
literally. Yeah,
It's like, oh my
all the
God.
time. I'm like such a hypochondriac as well, so I relate to that so much. I'm like, yeah, just every time I get a pain, I'm like, this is the one. This is the one. It's ending. So.
Do you when you create? I think this is going to be a pretty obvious question, but do you use your emotion in your, like, the way how you're feeling? Like if you're feeling anxious, or I don't know, I'm not sure if you're an anxious person or whatever, but like if you're feeling happy, do you feel like that it makes you want to create a certain piece or?
Yeah,
like,
for sure. And it's really interesting because I found as time goes on, so I'm one of those people with really self-deprecating humor type thing. Like I've just kind of like to be very sarcastic and like love satire, and if something's annoying me, I'll try to kind of try to like make a joke out of it and things like that. And I found those artworks where I was putting that like satire, this is how I'm feeling, and it was really authentic and relatable. They were always the ones that people liked the most. Like they were the ones that people I love this artwork, like I relate to it so much. So I think like when you let those like emotions and like how you're feeling really shine through, everyone relates, because as humans we like to think that we are the only ones thinking what we're thinking and we're a bit weird for it, but you find out like when you voice things, everyone has the exact same like thoughts, issues, like weird anxieties, like, so why not just put it out to the people? And
that's what I think. I definitely think if it feels right in your gut, put it out or create it.
And I found it's always times that I've like gone like really trusted my gut, but then be like, no, I'm going to change that just in case. I always shouldn't have done it. Like I always should have just trusted my gut and gone with the first.
I think it just, maybe, I don't know if it comes down to confidence, like just being confident in the product you're providing.
Yeah.
And just knowing that whatever you put out is going to be well received.
Yeah. So
like I guess it's a little bit, I don't really know how that kind of sits with me in this kind of space, because I'm not necessarily talking about myself. I'm speaking with other people.
Yeah.
So I don't I guess I did ponder on that thought though, because I was thinking there's some days when I have guests on where I'm feeling very like highly strung and really anxious, and or like things have been happening in the background in my other part of my life.
Yeah, that you got to kind of just
that are
turn
like
off
I'm
and
trying to
come
like
on.
shut them off and then come on here and just like be calm.
Yeah.
Like today is a prime example. I was like, before this, I was like psycho, just like freaking out what was going on. But then in here, I'm like, I just have to like learn to like cut it off.
Yeah.
But then I wonder that if I wasn't to cut it off and I was to maybe be a bit more not authentic, but maybe
Yeah.
be how that would be received, like how that would come across and
Yeah.
how it would make the conversation go if I was kind of like a little bit more.
Yeah.
You
Like
know
really
what I mean?
angry, like pulling the TV down. You're like, it's not straight. Like,
I don't.
but,
yeah, I just it's an interest because that's what I was thinking of. I was like, well, artists and people alike, well,
Yeah.
they share their art through their emotion.
Yes.
It's like, how do you do that as a podcast? You wouldn't want to come in and be going like,
You're just crying into the mic. Everyone's like, we can't actually understand what you're saying.
or
you're
like
just
if your emotion directs the conversation that you're having with someone.
Yeah.
Which is also, I find, very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe it's just
definitely.
human behavior. I don't know.
Yeah,
But-
because I find like everyone through history that we look at as like great artists, it's always been that they've been so authentic in every single way. Like, you look at people like David Bowie, like, you know, he's seen as like such an icon, but when he was first starting, I'm sure so many people were like, this dude is really weird. Like,
Yeah.
he's so emotional and he's got all these different aliases and looks, and but then you see the masses just relate to it, and it's like,
yeah, it's very interesting. Like when you get to watch someone be themselves.
it's comforting, I think, for people to see people actually being themselves, because I think when you see people be vulnerable and you see them like be like, I get anxious about this too and I worry about this as well, you're like, wow, it's not just me, like this is such a normal human thing, but we treat it like it's some taboo that's like,
I know it is very interesting, especially when it comes to like mental health and stuff like that.
exactly.
Which then makes me beg the question, it's like, what do people think of Kanye? Because it's like, where are we drawing? This is what I do ponder on. It's like,
Yeah.
I got to stop saying ponder on it. So
Word of the day, ponder.
Ponder's the word of the day,
Yeah.
apparently. It's like, where do you draw the line between being your fully authentic self and then you're on the borderline of being crazy?
Yeah. Or I guess it's when you're being your authentic self, is it harming other people? Because I guess that's where we look at Kanye at the moment, where he's kind of taken a turn and people are questioning it, is he's like name dropping his ex-wife and her new boyfriend and is posting these horrible things about them. And it's like, you're not now raising awareness on mental health, you are just putting someone down. And it's
Yeah,
like
you're
that
like-
could be because of this, but people aren't going to relate and see mental health as like a better thing to talk about. And if it's going to, it should be how do I want to say this? Like it should be a explanation but not an excuse, your mental health.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like it should be able to be like, this is what shaped my actions, but it shouldn't be I can do whatever I want because I don't know. It's hard to talk about, I guess, because everyone's mental health journey is so different. And I'm not a mental health professional, so I can't make it a disclaimer.
Yeah, I've always been nervous to like touch on those type of subjects because I don't want to not bring the conversation down, or I don't want to offend anyone. But it is an interesting topic, I guess, because I feel like so many people deal with mental health.
Yeah,
and a lot of people struggle with it
so differently as well. Like I remember I did an exhibition, and that was the theme of the exhibition was mental health, and I was just sitting there for weeks, like I don't know what to do because I don't know if like I do something a bit too out there, if someone's going to see that and be a bit like, you know, like a bit triggered by it or a bit. So it was so hard. I was like, because I want to get the point across of how I'm feeling, but I don't know if this like downplays somebody else's experience, or if they don't see it in the same way, they're not going to feel represented by what I'm saying. So I found it a really hard topic.
What did you end up going with?
So I did they were like boxing posters, and it was head versus heart, and it had all of the like stats of each one. So it had like, you know, heart, it'll like fall head over heels over itself, like that's a con, like that's where it's going to get. And then the brain was like too quick to think sometimes, or like overthink, so it like misses the move and things like that. And it kind of had them as them going into the ring because I found that's like always my biggest struggle is, do I trust logic or emotion?
What do you normally run with when you...
Logic. You have less issues when you go with logic. Like, it's all I got to say. Like, emotion will work sometimes. Logic will tend to always work. So
Yeah, I'm very like logic to me makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I find my emotions are just too crazy.
Yeah, my emotions, they're all over the shop. They don't know what they want. So I'm like, no, let's go with head instead of heart. Yeah. So
It's a very interesting topic, the old mental health, especially at the moment. I think there's a lot of awareness around it.
Yeah.
And now I think it's like trying to find the balance of like what's too much and what's not enough.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Because even I have like days where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling like a bit like down or anxious today. Maybe I should give myself a day off. But then I'm like, would it be better for me to kind of like discipline myself a bit and be like, no, you should go do that and put your mind into it because it'll make you feel better. And then I'm like, or I'm trying to be lazy by taking a break, and then it comes back to, I don't know, so it's really hard to like.
You actually just touched on exactly what I was about to ask,
Yeah.
so this is great. How do you deal with that particular scenario? So if people didn't understand what we were just talking about, it's like, I struggle with this. It's where you don't know what is the perfect balance between I'm overworking and now I need to actually take a break, but I need to not feel guilty for taking a break. But I really struggle with just sitting still and just being happy to like take a break.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is just part of how my mental, like my brain works. It's like it doesn't, I've had it drilled into me that you need to work hard, because if you don't work hard, you're going to fail. And if you fail, that's it. Like there's the end of the world.
And in like the like capitalistic society we live in, it's like everyone's always working, and it's girl boss and it's side hustle. And it's like, if you're not constantly on the go and doing stuff, you're not doing enough. And it's like that mentality is not sustainable for anybody. Like I found that out like last year, kind of everyone that wanted something done, I was like, yep, I can do it because I want all the opportunities I can get. And if I turn them down, that's a really bad thing. So I'm going to take every opportunity. And then I just burnt out so badly. And then there was like 2 months where I was like, if anyone even mentions crap design to me, I'm going to throw my phone like off the Story Bridge on my walk home. Like I can't even look at it. Like, and then I realized like, oh, this is why people take breaks. Like this is why musicians have like a year between albums or maybe more and all these things, because you have to take a break. Otherwise, you will just burn out and end up almost like resenting what you're doing.
Is there any specific moment where you have burnt out, like you were talking about then? And what were the steps that you took to get re-inspired to make art?
I kind of just like stopped making art for other people for a bit, because majority of the art I make is for other people. I don't really sit down and make a lot just for myself or my Instagram or my print store and stuff. Like majority of the art I make is for other people. So I found I just kind of like took, like I think it was like 2 weeks I just took off, just hung out, like because usually I go to work, come home, do graphic design, go to bed, same thing the next day. So just kind of took like 2 weeks off, just hung out with friends, and then found inspiration just kind of started to come back. Like it was just sneaking in when I was least expecting it, because I find when you're sitting down in front of a blank page and you're like, yep, I'm going to start, there's never inspiration there. Like that's never when you're like, I have the idea. It's always at the most inconvenient time when you're like driving home along the highway or something. You're like, oh my God, that was such a good idea. I got to voice memo that really quickly before I forget. So I find like those breaks are really important, because that's when sometimes the best ideas come to you.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me.
Yeah.
Like when I used to make music, like electronic music, which I'm going to start doing again just as fun. And I'd literally start like humming like a tune. Yeah. I'm like, all right, can't forget this. Yeah. It's always at the weirdest times. It's never when you need it to be there. It's always at the most inconvenient times. Yeah. And usually you're doing something where you can't stop.
Exactly. Like, oh, man, I'm like at work or something. I'm like, I just need to go to the bathroom really quickly. But like, why? I'm like grabbing my phone just like quickly write down some like note that I look at later. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. So what was I even thinking then? Like,
that's what when I wrote the description of the podcast, I was at work and it started coming to me and I was like, I can't stop. So I went to the toilet, wrote in like 2 minutes. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is the best thing ever. I know.
You're like a tradie, like writing it on like the wood, like with your pencil, just like someone's like, what is this? You're like,
are you okay?
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'm fine.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
I know, even sometimes like it sounds really bad, but sometimes I'll literally like wake up in the middle of the night just like, like that's what this is missing. And then just like quickly write it down and I'll do it in the morning. But yeah, it's always at the weirdest times.
What program do you use to create your art?
Mostly Photoshop and now Procreate, 'cause I've recently gotten an iPad, moved up a little bit. So
is Procreate that one where you just like you can draw with like a pen and like write everything in?
And you can do like crazy, like you can use, there's like tattooing brushes that are like needles, like there's like paper brushes. It's absolutely insane.
Renee touched on that. Yeah. So she's coming out this Friday. Yeah. Which will not make any sense to anyone listening because the next couple of
they'll be like, wait, so like when's that Friday?
Friday's 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. Yeah. She's coming out. Yeah. Oh yeah. Future self. Let's go. Yeah. But yeah, she used Procreate and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And someone else had it and they were showing me and they were like, they just doodle and just draw stuff on there all the time. I'm like, it's actually a really well designed app.
Yeah, and it's especially for people like tattooists and stuff, because there's even like symmetry lines in it. So you can draw something on one half of the page and it'll just mirror it for you. So now, like, I guess if you have like tattoo walk-ins where you used to have to sit there and kind of draw a stencil, now you can just like, is this kind of what you want? Yep, cool, we'll take it to the next from here.
That's what she was mentioning. Like, it made it so much easier for her to, like, her creative process to like.
Yeah, even just because like there's a lot of artists who will be like, I just really don't like Procreate, I like paper, which like is fair enough. But the thing I love about it is you make a mistake, you don't have to sit there rubbing stuff out, you just press undo. Didn't mean to undo it, redo, like done, easy. Like
that's how lazy we are these days.
Yeah, I know, everything's instant, just instant society. Like, yeah.
How do you find, because everything is so instant, everything is so consumed so fast and coming in and out, how do you stay relevant through your art? Like, are you going out looking, maybe we'll touch on, I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but kind of staying relevant with the times of like, maybe it's like mental health. So you're like, not that that's, I'm not using that as like a, hey, let's celebrate. Like, it just, you know what I mean? Like you're using, like, how do you stay relevant? Are you actively looking for things?
I think a lot of the time, like when there is like a global issue and I'll make an artwork about it and things like that, I do it because, not so much because I think like, oh, this will relate to people and it'll be awesome, but it's just kind of like, this is how I'm feeling and I'm so frustrated by it. And people do just be like, I'm the same. Like, I feel the same way. And I think the best way to like stay relevant is to just like stay true to what you are doing and to keep it going. And then, I don't know, relevance is hard because especially on Instagram, everything has like a 24-hour life cycle. Like one day something's in, the next day it's out. Like trends just change.
It is sickening how fast things move.
Mm-hmm. So I always say to people, don't follow trends. Trends come and go. Don't do that. Stick to what you do. And then it'll always be sustainable. You might not have the huge spikes like some people have, but if you stay true to yourself and you have continuity and you go, it'll always be. Whereas if you're a designer only following every single design trend that comes along, why would I follow you over somebody else doing the same thing? What do you offer me more than they offer me?
Which is good that you've mentioned that. So how would you say that your art is different from maybe someone else who's doing something similar?
Yeah, I guess that's a hard one. That is a hard one. I guess, I haven't really come across too many people that have really similar, but I'm sure they're definitely out there because I find everything these days is a bit, nothing's fully an original idea. There is some degree of, but I don't know with that one. That's a hard one.
How would you describe, for someone who's never seen your art before, how would you describe it?
I like to call it punk pop art because it's like pop art, but it's all very punk inspired and it's kind of that like satire. It's really like childish. Everything's like, some things are a bit gross. Like it's just, I think I got that from when I was a kid. I bought a Blink-182 shirt and it said on it like the finest quality crappy punk rock. And so that's such a funny way to market yourself, but people love it because then if you do something and it's bad, you go, well, we told you we were crap. And I don't know, I think I just like kind of used that and ran with that and
Is that how you would say you're marketing, like that's how you market yourself in terms of because it kind of sounds like you're giving yourself a bit of buffer room just in case it doesn't land. You're like, oh, well, shit anyway. So
exactly. And I find that all the bands I love and wanted to work with, they have that like kind of same like ethos, like mentality, like especially punk musicians. They're very like, you came, we're going to give you a shit show and that's that. Every song goes for 45 seconds to a minute. Enjoy. Like subpar show. Yeah, exactly. So I think that mentality played into like the clientele I was trying to get as well. So
who, I guess, would you describe your clientele as like the punk scene, like the metal scene kind of people?
Yeah, definitely. Like it's interesting, like even looking at my like following insights on Instagram is like majority are like 45-year-old men who like love punk rock from like 70s, 80s, like that, and they love it because they're like, oh, this reminds me of like if I do like Sex Pistols are, so like, oh my god, I love this. And then so it's actually really interesting to look at that and be like, oh, but I love it. I go to shows and I get this like so many old men come up to me and like, you crap design. I'm like, I follow you on Instagram. I'm like, okay, cool.
I'm Jesus.
Literally like, woo. So
which is interesting because now that you've mentioned that, I'd like to touch on something else which is completely polar opposite to what you've just described.
Yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't know, on International Women's Day, Casey the legend designed this beautiful piece that I shared, and then without me even knowing, a couple of friends of mine shared it, and I was like, oh, they must have just seen it on my story. And then when you posted it, saying how viral it went, I was like, oh my God.
370,000 shares was the final number.
So could you please describe the post for anyone that hasn't seen it?
Yeah, so basically it's just, it's not like a crazy artwork or anything. It's just like kind of a typography infographic, I guess. And it basically says, Happy International Women's Day. And I thought, what I wanted to do was highlight people that aren't normally represented on this day. I feel like when people normally talk about International Women's Day, it's like, here's some ladies in a corporate office having a morning tea and some cupcakes, and it's International Women's Day, and it's like, you know, we're sick of that. Like, you know, we need to start including everyone and, you know, making people feel seen and represented, because when people feel seen and represented, it just makes them, you know, feel good, feel passionate about stuff. So I was like, I really just wanted to do something that I felt I hadn't seen anywhere else. And it wasn't because I had in my head, this is going to go viral. I had in my head, like, I just want someone on this day to feel good that isn't normally represented. And obviously that echoed, like really echoed.
It echoed.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think this guy, I don't know who he is, but everyone was sending it to me like, oh my God, his name's like Jacob Collier. He has like 1.5 million followers and he shared it. And people are like, oh my God, this is crazy. I was like, I don't even know this person, but yeah, that's awesome. Like,
how's the roll-on effect of something like that happening? How, like the roll-on effect of that, has that given you more work?
It has. I got a lot of Instagram following from it, but I also just got a lot of hate in the DMs.
Really?
A lot.
Let's touch on that, because that is an interesting topic.
People
I feel
on the internet are wild. Like, I feel like everyone feels that their opinion is very valid, and if people don't feel represented by something, they're going to really voice that. And some people were making really good points where they were like, I feel like you've put people in the wrong group, and like I could have really constructive conversations with people, like, okay, next time I will like group that differently to this one. And there are some people who just say some really horrible things because they like to do that on the internet to get a little kick out of people, and it's so weird. Like, I had to turn off my DMs, I had to turn off commenting, I had to just step away from it. I actually deleted Instagram off my phone for the day because I was like, this is so much to take in. And it made me think of people who are constantly, all their posts are getting shared that often. Like, let's use like a Kardashian as an example. I was like, how did every time you post, you just deal with that? Like,
what? I have it. I don't think they're dealing with it.
No, like somebody else.
I feel like they're designed. I feel like when you're at that level, your Instagram is like a special kind of Instagram.
Yeah, and you would be so used to just like
I don't even think they would get DMs.
Yeah,
I don't think any of that would come through. I think they'll literally be able to post and nothing. They wouldn't see how many people like
it's like
it.
someone they've like selected. Maybe like, oh, these.
Yeah, it would have to be something different, because like when you're
because even mine, it was like I was refreshing it and it was going up like 300 like every minute, and I was like, you can't even use your phone at that point.
No, it just starts shutting down. Yeah. So I feel it must be. It have to. There's.
Yeah, like
because that's like a psycho. Like
they're like, welcome to the elite Instagram.
100%. 100%.
Yeah,
it'd be like this Illuminati kind of Instagram.
Yeah,
shit
like
going
now,
on.
now you're in the club. Like now you got the special. Like
like being Kylie Jenner, someone like who's got like the most following in the world.
It's like
you're just in this like platinum.
Yeah.
Platinum.
Yeah.
You're like the Qantas Club, but the top level Qantas Club.
They're like, you don't need to pay to promote anything. We'll promote it all for you.
You don't even walk in the main door. You're just like coming through the side door.
Exactly. So
your own little whole space.
Yeah. But yeah, it was crazy to me. Like, even on a post like that, that's like, you know, trying to bring people together and do something nice, there was still so many people who were like, well, this is my opinion and I don't feel that way. And I was just like, oh, this is wild. Like,
how did you, if you feel comfortable to talk about it, I don't want to, because I don't normally touch on this, but how did you find that affected your mental health, dealing with that kind of hate? Did you just like switch off?
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I was just looking at it like, because none of it was like aimed at me as a person. It was aimed at like things I said. But even to look at that and see like the hate some people have for certain groups of people and things like that, it was like horrible to look at that because I was just like, just constantly too, like it just coming in, you read it and then the next one comes in. And whereas I am quite fortunate where I do have friends that are in the music industry and they're a bit, you know, they've been around for a little bit, so they've got a crazy following. And I just went straight to them like, how do you deal with it? What do you do? And I just don't look at it. Like it sounds really hard, but just don't look at the comments. Don't go on and read them even as much as you want to. Just turn them off, walk away. And then I realised like you can literally just do that. You can just delete Instagram and none of it exists and it's not there and it's gone.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Like people don't understand that.
Yeah. Like it's like even me being like, oh wow, I can just not have this app.
I delete it all the time.
Yeah.
I went through like a social media break and just before I started the podcast, actually. The only reason why I got it back was for the podcast.
Yeah.
And I just shut it off. I just got rid of it. I was like, and I was thinking about it today as well. I was like, I'll actually delete it if I didn't need it for this. I don't need it per se, but it makes it a lot easier to promote yourself
definitely
through social media, unfortunately.
It does. As we were saying before, it's the one thing everybody is on. Like everyone's on Instagram. So I guess maybe something else. This is like really not, it's kind of all off topic, but it kind of makes sense. Yeah.
How do you find, I guess, because that post it had certain genders or certain categories or however you want to perceive it.
Yeah.
And then you're getting hate from both sides of the table. It's like, how do you, I guess, now moving forward when you're going to be, do you feel like it kind of stumps your art a bit? If in terms of like, you're like, oh, well, now I can't do that because maybe that might.
It does definitely. And it's made me be a bit more wary about like next time posting something that is, you know, where I'm highlighting groups of people that I am not. Maybe that's not my space to do that. And next time I need to focus on things that I relate to more, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to be like, I'm like voicing all of this and this is awesome, maybe letting those people have the voice to voice it instead of, is like a good way to put it for certain things.
It's an interesting world right now.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes. But I just find like you can't please everyone anyway, no matter what you do. If you listen to every point of criticism, you can't ever please everyone, because there's a lot of times I go to people with artwork and I'm like, oh, what do you think of this? And I'll get 50 different opinions and they're all completely different. So I'm like, if I was trying to impress everyone and go by what everyone, it's just, you can't do it. Yeah. Unfortunately.
I kind of stay in my own lane, so to speak, where I don't really, like I have opinions on a lot of different things. I'm actually pretty opinionated.
I'm like, oh, you run a podcast. I wouldn't think maybe you would have opinions.
But I don't really voice them unless I'm in a space where I feel comfortable enough to voice them, if that makes sense. Like obviously around my friends or whatever. But it's just, I mean, I'm at this weird point in my life where I'm getting older and I'm trying to think and I'm like, maybe it's just too hard. Like you can't please everyone, but even if you have a genuine intention, it's kind of a bit upsetting that you still get shut down for like having a genuine intention.
100%. And there were people that had like really nice, like constructive conversations with me. Like, hey, just letting you know this is why I felt this way. And those people love that. More than happy to talk to them, listen to their point of view. And be like, you know what, next time I'm going to do this. It's the people that on the internet like attack you and typing in capitals and yelling at you and saying like, you are this. And then you're kind of trying to explain that like your apology is not good enough. Like that is not. And you're like, well, I don't know what you want from me. Like I'm trying to have this, but you obviously aren't here to educate me. You're here to have a go at me. So we're going to have this conversation. It's not going to go anywhere.
It's a dead end conversation.
Exactly.
It's not going
So it's like I'm not going to put my effort into that, but I'm more than happy to sit and talk to someone that wants to say like, hey, maybe next time do this a little bit better. I'm like, yeah, 100%. But yeah, you've got to pick your battles, I guess. Like
I had to learn the hard way. About how to handle those situations, and it's really sad, but now like what it's come to is that I'm not even upset anymore if someone's angry about something. Like if I say something on here and someone gets upset, I'm just gonna be like, well, I kind of feel sad for them. I'm like, what is going on in your life that's making you so angry and so upset that you feel like you like your voice needs to be projected at someone that you have no idea about. It's like why like where are you feeling the entitlement to be like that towards someone? I was like, I don't think
it's interesting because in the age of social media, some people have touched on, we have something called like a parasocial relationship with people, which is because we're consuming their content 24/7. We're looking at what they're doing all the time. We feel like we know their life. We feel like we know them, and we feel like we're therefore entitled to their time or their opinions, and they have to talk to us because your whole life's on Instagram, so you have to talk to me.
Yes.
And it's like, that's not a thing at all. I actually don't know you. I have no idea who you are. I don't want to talk to you. Like, it's weird. It's like we feel this need to like have access to people because we see their life, and it's just such a weird concept to me.
It is a weird concept.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like you don't know that person.
No, but
you don't
like,
know what, like, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm just, I think, yeah, it's all about balance, but
Exactly.
I guess at the end of the day. But, all right, I feel like this has been a really good podcast. I'm genuinely, like, I really have been enjoying what we've been speaking about because when I first started this, I was like, I don't want it to just be based around, like, I want to talk about the guests, of course.
Yes.
But I also want to, the whole point is to get them onto like a normal human level for everyone to relate to.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to, like, anyone can sit here. Like when I was growing up, I used to watch like Channel V and like classic interviews of people going like blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even like interviews because like it's always the same shit.
Yeah, when's your
It's
next album coming
What
out?
are they promoting? What are they like? It's like you don't know. It's like I want to know what they're like. I want to know what's going on in their head because my head's crazy. So like I want to know are they crazy as me or am I just like
Exactly. That's even when I started doing those animations was when I was doing music journalism or wanting to. I was like, I don't want to do the, you know, when's this coming out? How has your tour been? So what I did was I got everyone to tell a story of something that happened on tour, like me not even talking, just you relayed the story, and then I animated the entire thing. And people loved it because they were like, oh my God, I get to see like
That's
part
amazing.
of this because people want to be in the green room. They want to know what's happening backstage. Like that's what they want to like. So if you can get people to just tell that story straight up, people love it because they feel like they were like there and they're a part of it and they're like seeing this world that they have no idea about and seems so like foreign. And because, you know, we'll always know when the album's coming out. We're always going to know when they're touring. Like, that's always going to be there.
It's like irrelevant information. It's like
tell
anyone
me
can
something
find
funny.
that.
Like,
I
tell me
know.
when you met another celebrity, like, backstage and they were weird. Like, that's what I want to know. Like,
Have you had any of those experiences as an artist?
not really yet. Like, I haven't had any really odd ones.
Any
yet.
like drastic where you're like, oh man, that was pretty full on.
No, not yet, but I'm waiting. I'm sure there will be a few. I'm sure.
Because you mentioned that you're in the music scene.
Yeah.
So obviously your art is tied in with your music scene.
Yeah.
So like it just made me wonder. I was like, how does that? I guess how does your art sit within the music scene, and how has it been received? Because you're local to Brisbane.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the pop punk scene or metal scene is quite large down there. I think Tyler mentioned it in a. He was like, yeah, it's really big down there. It's popping.
Yeah. So one thing people don't actually know much about is Brisbane was the epicenter of punk music. Punk music began in Brisbane. It was the first city in the world. People can say it was New York or it was the UK. It was Brisbane with the Saints. So Brisbane has always been the epicenter of punk music, which sounds
This is
weird.
a big call.
Yeah, like I know, and people can argue that all they want, but they're wrong. They're wrong if they argue it. So people can say, you know, the UK was doing it, Saints did it first. So crazy. And Brisbane back then had like task force, like the police would come out if you were playing a show that shut it down within 10 minutes. It was police brutality everywhere. So it was a city that was built to not have it, and it overcame it, and it came from nowhere. We didn't have what New York City and everything had. So I think people that live in Brisbane now and still know that history just kind of want to keep that alive. And like Brisbane's a great city to live in. People love living here. The weather's always good. You know, we've got great venues. I know it's hot.
Big call.
But if you're listening to here from Melbourne, you would be like, oh yeah, the weather's always good in Brisbane. Like it's always sunny. It's
It
great.
rains so much.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
So you're just
You're
painting
just flooded.
painting this picture of this really.
Sunshine State.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Really, really amazing.
Yeah, but so I find in Brisbane as well, like lots of people that live there, they've all come from Bundaberg, Sunshine Coast, Toowoomba, because they're all looking for that city where they can kind of make it happen, and there's opportunity for them too. Because if you're living in Nambour, there are venues here, but you don't have a crazy live music scene. So I think everyone moves there to kind of keep it, to be able to have the opportunities to actually play to rooms of people. And I think there's a lot of people there that I think punk music will just always kind of be there as well. People always love it, and it will have a really big following. But yeah, I find in Brisbane, I've just been really lucky because I went to so many shows when I was younger, it's how I met all the people I basically work for now. So it wasn't even like a work relationship. It was like, oh, that girl that comes to all those shows, she actually made that poster. So, you know, tap me on the shoulder, like, do you want to do the next one? So, and I was like, oh, yeah. So I guess I was like networking without even realizing I was back in the day kind of. And
what was, there's going to be a few questions, and hopefully I remember all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. There's two questions I want to ask right now. I hate saying questions. It sounds like an interview, which I despise. Anyway, when you like, who's the biggest like person that you've worked for, that you've designed a poster for, and how did you feel when you were given that opportunity to make something like that?
Yeah, so I think the first, like the biggest people I got was with the Chats. And
Smoko.
Yeah, Smoko.
The
boys, yeah.
Come on the show.
So, yeah, so it was with them. And they messaged me being like, can you do a shirt for us for Ozband Shirt Day? Which I'm like, oh my God, because even when I was younger, I'd always buy shirts from Ozband Shirt Day. I had like a June Rats one and stuff that, you know, as a kid I'd gotten and everything. So I just loved that. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I can do that for you. When do you need it by? We need it in 48 hours was the reply. We need it in 48 hours. So I paced the house for 46 of those hours, I reckon, back and forth, sweating, being like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I can't figure this out. And just freaking out. And it was like in the last like hour, I just had the thought and was like, that's what I'm going to do. And they loved it. And they've gotten more shirts off me since. So I was like, wow. But it was stressful. I was stressed.
Like, after you completed it, how did you feel? Like, were you feeling elated? Were you like really happy that it
yes
was
once
well
it was, you know, approved and that we're going to use it and we really like it, it was amazing. And then it's not until you see someone walking down the street wearing one that you're actually like, oh my God, like that person's wearing my shirt, like, and you're like kind of looking at them and smiling at them. They're just like, who is this weird girl smiling
that
at
is
me?
so interesting. I was like, man, I should have thought it. But like, yeah, how did you, I guess like, because that is your art being represented through someone else.
Yeah.
And they have no idea that you're the person that made that.
Literally. And I'm just standing there looking at them and they're like, what? And I'm like, cool shirt. And sometimes they're like, you know, they're a bit like, okay. And I'm just like, all right, like, see ya, like.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's crazy when you go into a venue and you've done a poster for them and they've got like those poster walls where they kind of keep everything. When you're in like a kind of iconic venue and they've got one, you're just like, oh my God. Like,
is there an iconic venue that you know in, like, because I don't know Brisbane very well,
So a lot of the work I do for the zoo, even like they're one of Brisbane's oldest music venues. They've been there since 1992. So there for me to even work with them, because I do a lot of their graphic design now, is just mind blowing because I've been going there since I was old enough to go to shows and see people, and it's insane. Like, it just feels surreal.
That's so amazing. I get so excited because the whole, like, one of the other, like, there's multiple different things going on in this podcast, but one of them that I like to get across to other people is like, when you get to operate on this higher frequency and you're feeling very like elated, or you're feeling very happy with yourself because you're like, man, I'm really doing something, is how do you like manage that energy and then implement it? Do you like, when you're like, oh man, I'm feeling inspired, and you run off and like create, or do you like manage it in a way that you're like, okay, I'm going to sustain this for a long period of time?
I think one thing that's important that we as people don't tend to do is like sit in that feeling for a little bit. Like, as much as it wants you, make you want to run and do the next thing or think of what you're going to do next, just remember that the week before, even the year before, you wanted to be where you were now. So just sit in that for a moment and like take it in, because it's so good. And then once you have done that, then go and create. Don't think like, oh, so I was able to make that, now everything I make is going to be like, just have the win and really like it, and then when you're ready, move on to the next thing. Like, because I always find people think, you know, you do the one shirt, then you do another, and you just kind of keep going up, but success isn't like this. Success looks like that, a couple steps back, steps forward, like, up, down, exactly. So like, I think at first I would get really disheartened when I would do like merch for the Chats, and then I wouldn't have someone as big want me for merch. Like, I'd be like, well, what have I done wrong? And then the thing as a creative you have to remember is like, the creative industries aren't like sport. They're not comparable. Nobody is the best. Everything's subjective. So some people might love what you do. Some bands might be like, that's just not really my thing. And you shouldn't take that personally, because I had to sit with that thought or that feeling recently where
I had certain guests on who had a large following,
Yeah.
and it just didn't do well. Not that it didn't do well,
Yeah.
but like visually, how do I explain this? So like the views weren't very high,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
People probably found a lot of value, like the ones that did listen to it, which
Yeah.
is amazing because I don't necessarily care.
Yeah.
But it's like interesting to see where there's episodes that I've put out where the following isn't big at all,
Yeah.
and it's just shot through the roof, and it's
Yeah.
interesting to see how that dynamic works because you're
Yeah.
like, surely someone with a massive following would just go through the roof. But what I've learned is that it's not necessarily their following, it's what's going on within the podcast and what you're actually talking about.
Exactly. It's the actual content
Yeah.
that people are really drawn to. Like even that International Women's Day post had all those shares, whatever. I put on what the next day and it got like 70 likes. Like, you know, so it's just like, just because you've got that doesn't mean that's a guaranteed like momentum. It just shows like the message you're trying to get across or the information you have in your show in that one, like people really relate to. And I always think like as long as you can kind of inspire like one person, you're doing it right.
Yeah, that's my whole goal.
Yeah.
Like, if just one person watches it and they find something out of it,
Yeah.
then I'm so happy. Like I don't care about their following. It has no the only thing someone with a big following to me provides is obviously a bigger platform for more people to be inspired to go out there and
Yeah.
create.
Yeah.
That is literally the only purpose. Like I don't care. Like I'll get anyone on. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
bother me.
Yeah.
Even like the plans that I have set in place for the future
Yeah.
aren't like, if I'm not going to speak about it because I want to keep it under wraps,
yeah.
but it has nothing to do with following or it's purely chasing the feeling and like allowing people to have their story heard
Yeah.
to make to make them feel special and not like in a sympathetic way, but like it's like allowing them to have a voice because what they might have like could provide so much value and content to someone who someone who had a massive following. Like you just never know, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
and the whole point of this podcast is like you just don't know what someone can do with either the content that they talk about or if you nurture someone's idea, like you know, like possibilities and
Exactly.
Just can't even get words out.
Yeah.
But
No, 100%. Like, because even like when you get a post that does get that traction and there is heaps of views and it's very short lived because social media has a 24-hour life cycle anyway. So that's only going to be consistent for 24 to 48 hours at the most, and then
it's done. It's gone.
So why not? Like, if you have something that's good. And, like, it might have lesser views when you first put it out, but through time, that doesn't mean that it can't gain momentum and still build on what you've started, I guess. But, yeah, it's really weird because when you create something, like when I do those shirts and stuff, like, it kind of keeps going because I see people still in public wearing them and I'm like, oh, cool. Whereas, like, an Instagram post, it's not as rewarding because it's cool to get likes and shares and follows, like it's all, but it doesn't make any difference to anything at the end of the day.
It's just bad for your brain, really.
Exactly.
Bad
you
for
just
your
start
dopamine
getting
energy.
obsessed
Yeah.
over it even because like I knew I would gain followers from that and then the second I posted again, I was going to lose half of them probably because they'd be like, well, we followed for this particular thing
it's a
and it's not going to happen
world.
again. So we're going to, and then we might all just move off Instagram tomorrow anyway.
And then it's all over, Red
It's all
Rover for everyone.
Exactly. So, exactly. So,
Is there a particular piece that you're really proud of that you've put out?
Definitely. I think when I did the wax poster, so they're a Brizzy band as well, and somebody took a photo of them and I actually like illustrated it, which is something I don't normally put a lot of time and effort into. Just illustrated it, put it on my Instagram, then they messaged me being like, we are using this for the tour poster. Like, we can buy this artwork off you if you want. Like, and I was like, that was really nice because I spent so much time on it and it was really rewarding to actually be like, wow, my patience paid off. So
This is an interesting one that I'd like to touch on. How do you on the business side of things, how do you like gauge your prices and like, because it's so
hard.
because I find that this topic is so interesting because so many people
do it differently.
So I'm like, what is
Yeah.
like, how do you like, what's the rundown of your whole business side?
Personally, I price on my client. So if they are a small Brisbane band that are playing their first show and they have 50 followers on Instagram, I'm not going to charge them what I charge a band with like 12 people who have been playing shows forever have managers, have this, where they've got like a bit more.
Bit
I
more
want
pull.
people to all have the opportunity to have like cool art that like represents their band or their brand. So for me, it's like, it's not really about money. Like I would do this. I know people always say that, but like I would do it without getting paid for it. I actually love it. Not as much as I do it now. That would be horrible and so unsustainable. But yeah, I find it hard. So I try to price on the client, I guess. But recently I found this Instagram page and she made a Google document that was just like, if you're a freelancer, put in what you do, what experience you have and what you charge for these things. And after going through that spreadsheet, I was like, I am ripping myself off. Like, you guys are getting paid this much for this? Like, I think it's as well because I'm self-taught. I feel like there's a part that I can't charge what people did if they're like, have gone to uni and know how to do it. Like,
yeah,
it's
maybe
very
it's
imposter
interesting.
syndrome-y as well, because maybe I think like, oh, I'm not good enough to charge that.
I do find this, like, now that you've touched on that, it is,
Yeah.
how do you, that was actually kind of going to be my next kind of question, is like, where do you find the confidence to, because there's this old saying, it's like, creative people are really good at creating, terrible at business.
Yeah.
And probably it could be true, but
Yeah.
I don't like people that say negative stuff like that, so screw you.
Yeah.
So how do you, like, where do you draw the confidence to maybe charge? Like, are you building confidence as you're going along? Is it getting more, you're like, actually, no, my content is like, and this is what I provide, and I will charge this because, you know what I mean?
Definitely. And I've found, again, like I've been very fortunate where I do know people that are in bands and stuff like that. So I was kind of like, what do you pay for a poster? What do you think's a ridiculous price? What do you think's too little? And I've been very lucky where some of the people I've actually worked with have come back to me and they've been like, oh, there's something wrong with the invoice. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, did I get your ABN wrong? And they're like, no, you're charging so little. Like, you need to add to that. And I find that crazy that someone that's like, people that are paying for the service are still trying to nurture the artist in that way and be like, no, like.
That's amazing. Like, they're not taking advantage of you, they're actually helping you out, which I think is, like, community is everything to me.
It is. And like, when you nurture people and you really have that community, like, people, you know, it just makes it easy and everyone is happy and everything comes out better. Whereas if you have an environment where it's like everyone feels a bit exploited or underrepresented or underpaid, overworked, you're going to get shit work out of it. Like, people are going to give you stuff that isn't good. So
what is your worst, like, piece that you've brought out, and how did it make you feel? Like, be like, oh, this just did not hit the mark. Like, this is bad.
So I got an offer to do a festival poster and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Yeah, this is wild. And like, you know, I got the lineup and it was like Violent Soho, like all these crazy, like iconic Australian bands. And I was like, and I just went into it thinking I've never made a festival poster. So I started trying to make it look like another festival poster that somebody else had put out. And the guy came back to me and he was like, look, no offense, he's like, this is nothing like what you do. Like, this is, I don't understand why you've given me this when I look on your Instagram and it looks like this. And he was like, it doesn't look like what you do. And I think that was a big like, oh, I've got to trust myself more, because I didn't trust myself, went with something I thought people wanted, but they came to me for a reason. If they wanted the way the other one looked, they would have gone to them. And I think that was like a real turning point in being like, okay, you do have to trust your gut and like go with your instinct, and yeah, it pays off, I guess. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think trusting yourself is a big one, and it takes a very long time to figure that out.
I still sometimes don't trust, like I'll be like, oh, should I, like going to hit send on the Dropbox, like, oh, I could just, or change that. No, just like put it out, just do it and see what happens. So yeah.
It's an interesting, like, I feel the same sometimes. I'm like, I have this, I don't know what it was, like something I guess just clicked for me with this podcast, and I was like, what I'm trying to do, I was like, oh, this just makes sense. Yeah. It makes sense within me. I'm like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And then everything I've been implementing and everything I'm like coming up with and all these different ideas, I'm like, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know if it's going to pay off, but it just makes sense.
Yeah.
So exactly. I find it, I like it, like, how do other artists, if like, does it just make sense? Is that something that with you, you're like, this just makes sense?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Everything,
I'm like,
this is me.
that's just, and that's what I'm going to do it. If people don't like it, that's okay. Like, I think that's one thing people need to learn as creatives, is that it's okay if people don't like your things, because nobody has the same taste in everything. So not everyone's always going to like what you do, and that's fine, as long as you like what you do. which I know we're all like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, Graham's like, oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Where we'll get a bit cliche, I guess.
Yeah.
Or like I'll ask like actually I don't even know if it's a standard question, but God, I hate questions. where do you see your brand in the next 5 years?
Honestly, I do see it being like my full-time job, in all honesty. I think I have like, I don't know, I think I see me doing like a lot more merch, a lot more with bands, but I see it like almost getting bigger than that, and maybe like working with like people as like a more full-time, like developing brands with them and things like that. That's somewhere I'd like it to go, and I think it could go that way, definitely. So,
and what steps would you take to implement that?
Just, I don't know, I guess just like working really hard. Like really good advice. It's like the Kim Kardashian advice the other day. You got to get off your ass and work. No one wants to work these days. Like,
straight to the cliche.
Yeah, like,
just gonna put in the work, man.
Put in the work. No
full
sleep,
credit to the boys.
Just work really hard. Don't take any breaks. Just ignore your mental health. Go nuts. Like, no, I don't know. I think it's I don't know. I guess it's like, yeah, trusting yourself, knowing which like direction and which clients are the ones you want to take, and that like choosing people that kind of take you into that direction, I guess, instead of getting like stuck in a comfortable rut. Because comfortability is easy. You get likes when you're comfortable. People share your stuff when it's comfortable, but it always
stay on the cusp.
Yeah, it always pays off to take a risk. I think it's a bigger risk in life to not take them, because then you're just staying still, and that's so boring. Like, wow, I should be a.
Where do you? All right, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Where do you see your brand in by the end of this year in December? Like, what's something that you'd like to have achieved by the start of next year?
I haven't thought that far ahead, actually. I never really like sit down with my art and plan long-term goals. I kind of just sit and go like, okay, well, day by day, week by week. I've never really sat down, because I think I stumbled into it rather than chose it as like, this is something I really want to do, and it just kind of happened. So I think I've never really sat down and thought about its longevity, because to me, I'm like, oh, the fact it even happened, so awesome, and I'm just going to ride the wave while I can, and when it stops, it stops. Like, so yeah, I've never actually sat down and thought about it in like, what's going to be in a year, what's going to be in 5 years. I'd like to design a beer can at one point. That's like one of my next big ones, but that's like, these are the smallest my goals are like. I don't know.
That's all right.
I feel like they're like achievable. Like,
all right,
what's in the...
what we're going to do is,
yeah,
in 12 months, not 12 months,
yeah,
in 6 months' time, or end of the year, whenever that is. Wait, that's ages away. That's way more than 6 months. Anyway.
The years go that quick.
You'll come back on and we'll find out whether or not you've created this beer can, because I love beer can.
Yeah.
Yes, but there is 2 things that we like to do at the end of this podcast.
Yeah.
Number 1, you get a shout out a local legend who you think should come on the show.
Oh, okay.
And then number 2 is you get to give advice to someone who might be trying to create and maybe struggling or needs a little bit of inspiration.
Okay. If they're locals, like local Sunny Coast, or
local
Brizzy, Gold
Queensland,
Coast, Queensland,
anywhere that you think someone would be willing to travel here to come on.
I do think someone I would really like to hear their thoughts and kind of how their career started and everything would be a local Brisbane painter named Zaid. Him and his housemate have just started putting on like crazy art shows in Brisbane that are almost like changing the way the art scene have put shows on in the past. Like they've got DJ, it's like a rave, and they're in-house and like house parties, and the whole house gets paintings put everywhere. It's awesome, and I think I'd love to see him on it, so I can send you his Instagram link to reach out if you like. But he'd be one I would love to hear his thoughts, pick his brain.
And then the second part is, what advice would you give to someone who might be starting out, who might be working, might have a family and kids, and it's like, man, I really would just like to love to do this because that makes me feel happy.
Yeah.
Is there any advice that you'd give to someone in those particular places in time?
I think you're never too old, or it's never too late to start something, I think is one thing I'm learning. You can be 40 and decide to change your career path, or pick up a paintbrush for the first time, or jump on Photoshop. There is, if you feel passionate about something, just do it. Even if you don't want to make it a job, even if, you know, it doesn't have to be your whole life. If you love doing something, just sit down and do it. And at the end of the day, things will just fall into place because of that, because you have that passion and you've got the drive. And yeah, I think that sounds really cliche. That sounded very like...
Just put in the hard work.
Yeah, literally, the Kim Kardashian again. Just get off your ass and work.
No, I think it does. It definitely makes sense,
Yeah.
and it holds space and value within within someone's, I guess, particular mental space at that time, and they're probably struggling. So I think it holds value.
Yeah.
Oh man! All right, guys, this has been a really wholesome episode, and I've been super, super grateful and so thankful that Casey has come on and shared her thoughts, knowledge, all that good jazz. But unfortunately, this is the end of the episode, and you know what time it is, guys. Hang around for the next one. This one will be out soon. Let's go. Woo!